She married a silent human. Then he drew his sword, and everything changed. Kalira had been trained since childhood to hide her emotions. As a Vaith noble, she had learned to stand tall, speak carefully, and never let her thoughts show on her face. Still, as she stood beneath the glowing arches of the Unity Hall, she felt something close to disbelief. She was getting married, not to a powerful Vaith warlord, not to a brilliant strategist from one of the elder species, but to a human. The hall was filled with delegates from 100 worlds. Their skin colors, body shapes, and clothing styles blended into a moving mosaic of alien life. Quiet whispers passed through the air like small waves. Kalira did not need enhanced hearing to know what they were saying. A human, such a strange choice. Do they even fight? She kept her gaze forward and her posture calm. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her react. The human stood beside her. Elia's ward, that was his name. He was slightly taller than her, with dark hair cut short and plain formal clothing that followed Alliance standards but carried no marks of rank or pride. He wore no jewelry, no medals, and no visible weapons. His hands were folded calmly in front of him. His face showed no fear, no excitement, and no arrogance. If Kalira had not known better, she might have thought he was just another quiet official pulled into a ceremony too large for him. She had met him only 3 times before today. The first meeting had been brief and formal. Elias had bowed slightly, introduced himself, and spoken only when spoken to. The second time, he had listened more than he talked, asking careful questions about Vaith culture and customs. The third time, he had thanked her for her patience and said he hoped they could build something steady and respectful. That word had stayed with her, steady. The Vaith valued strength above all else. Steady was not a word often used with praise. The ceremony began. Ancient words were spoken in multiple languages, translated instantly by the hall systems. The marriage was not about love. Everyone knew that. It was a political bond between the Vaith Dominion and the Terran Union, meant to stabilize a tense region of space. Humans had risen quickly in the galaxy. Too quickly, some said. They were clever, adaptable, and strangely united for a young species. But they lacked the raw military reputation of older powers. Many believed this marriage was proof that humans knew their place and wanted protection. Kalira herself had believed that once. When the vows were complete, Elias placed his hand over his chest and spoke clearly. "I accept this bond in good faith, and I will honor it." That was all he said. No long speech, no promise of dominance or glory, just honor. The audience clapped politely. Some did so with open boredom. Others watched with narrow eyes. As they left the hall together, Kalira finally spoke in a low voice. "You handled that well," she said. Elias nodded. "Thank you for your patience." Again that word. Their assigned residence was a quiet diplomatic estate overlooking the artificial sea of the capital station. The building was secure, elegant, and designed to impress visitors. Kalira had lived in places like this all her life. Elias walked through it as if it were simply another room. That night, they shared a formal meal. The food had been carefully prepared to suit both species. Kalira noticed that Elias examined each dish, read the data display, and adjusted his portions without comment. "You may eat freely," she said. "The food is safe." "I know," he replied. "Old habit." She tilted her head. "From what?" "Travel," he said, and left it at that. As days passed, Kalira began to observe him more closely. Elias followed routines. He woke early, always before the station's artificial dawn. He spent time in one of the unused rooms, moving slowly and precisely, as if practicing a dance with invisible steps. When she once asked him what he was doing, he smiled slightly. "Keeping myself balanced." He was polite to staff. He listened carefully to advisors. When spoken to in council meetings, he answered clearly but briefly. He never raised his voice. He never argued unless necessary. And yet people listened. There was something about the way Elias spoke. He did not try to dominate the room. He did not seek approval. His words were few, but they carried weight like stones dropped into still water. Other delegates began to test him. A Dravic general laughed openly during one meeting and asked, "Does the human speak, or does he only stand there as decoration?" Elias looked at him calmly. "I speak when there is something useful to say." The room went quiet. The Dravic general said nothing more. Kalira felt a strange sense of pride, followed quickly by confusion. Elias had not insulted the general. He had not threatened him, yet the challenge had ended. One evening, Kalira found Elias standing on the balcony, looking out over the stars. The light reflected softly off his eyes. "You do not seem bothered by how others treat you," she said. He considered this. "I am aware of it. I simply choose not to carry it with me." "That must be easy for a human," she said. "No," he replied gently. "It is learned." She studied him then, really studied him. There were faint lines on his hands, marks of old work, not soft like a diplomat's should be. His posture, relaxed as it seemed, was always ready, always aligned. "What did you do before this?" she asked. "I served where I was needed," he said. It was not an answer, but it was all she would get. As the weeks passed, Kalira noticed something else. Threat reports began to increase. Small conflicts along the border, ships going missing. Rumors of an alliance forming in secret, one that did not want peace. At night, Elias read reports quietly. He did not share opinions unless asked. When he did speak, he pointed out patterns others missed. "This group is not acting randomly," he said once. "They are testing responses." Kalira frowned. "Testing what?" "Resolve," Elias said, "and reaction time." She felt a chill she could not explain. Despite the growing tension, Elias remained the same, calm, observant, silent. One evening, Kalira overheard two aides whispering in the corridor. "She married a harmless human," one said. "A soft shield." The other laughed. "At least he will not start a war." Kalira surprised herself by feeling anger rise in her chest. They did not see him, not really. That night, as the station lights dimmed, Kalira lay awake, listening to the soft sounds of the estate. Elias was in the adjacent room, as custom required. She realized that for the first time in her life, she did not feel alone in a dangerous place. She did not yet know why. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet thought formed. The galaxy might have made a mistake. The days after the wedding settled into a strange rhythm. Kalira returned to her duties as ambassador, attending meetings, receiving reports, and answering endless questions from curious delegates. Elias walked beside her through most of it, quiet and steady, like a shadow that never tried to step ahead. Many still ignored him. Some treated him like a decorative symbol of peace, nothing more than a signature made flesh. Others spoke over him in meetings, assuming silence meant agreement or weakness. Elias never corrected them unless the misunderstanding mattered. Kalira noticed everything. She noticed how Elias always chose a seat with a clear view of entrances, how he positioned himself slightly to her left, close enough to intervene but never close enough to appear controlling, how his eyes moved constantly, not nervous but aware. At first, she told herself she was imagining things. Humans were new to the galaxy, yes, but this was diplomacy. Maybe all their envoys were trained like this. But the longer she observed him, the more she felt there was something deeper beneath his calm surface. One afternoon, Kalira invited Elias to join her in the strategy chamber of the estate. It was a quiet room, walls lined with star maps and shifting data displays. Few visitors ever came here. "I want your thoughts," she said, activating a projection of the border regions. Elias studied the display without speaking. He took his time, reading troop movements, supply routes, and communication delays. "These raids," Kalira continued, "the Council believes they are isolated actions, small groups trying to gain resources." Elias tilted his head slightly. "May I ask who benefits most if the Council believes that?" Kalira paused. "No one. That is why they think it is the truth." He nodded slowly. "That is usually when it is not." He pointed at several distant systems. "These locations look random. But they all sit near older jump routes, routes no longer used but still mapped." Kalira frowned. "Smugglers sometimes?" "Yes," Elias agreed. "And smugglers are careful. These attacks are not careful. They are loud enough to be noticed but small enough not to cause panic." He looked at her. "Someone wants attention without commitment." The room felt colder. "You are suggesting preparation," she said. "I am suggesting patience," he replied. "From someone who understands it well." Kalira studied his face. "You speak as if you have seen this before." "I have," he said simply. She did not press him further. As time passed, Kalira began to notice how others reacted to Elias when they truly looked at him. Security officers began greeting him with respect, though none could say why. Veteran diplomats leaned closer when he spoke, as if afraid to miss something important. Still, many mocked him openly. At a formal gathering, a Korthan noble raised his voice so others could hear. "Princess Kalira, does your human husband plan to contribute anything to this alliance? Or is he here only to observe?" The room quieted. All eyes turned toward Elias. Kalira felt her jaw tighten. She opened her mouth to respond, but Elias gently raised a hand. "I observe," he said calmly, "because observation prevents mistakes." The noble scoffed. "And what mistakes would you prevent?" Elias met his gaze. "The kind that cost lives." There was no threat in his voice, no anger, yet the noble looked away. Later that evening, Kalira confronted Elias privately. "You could have humiliated him," she said. "You chose not to." "Humiliation creates enemies," Elias replied. "Silence creates doubt." Kalira exhaled slowly. "You are very sure of yourself." He shook his head. "No. I am careful." That night, an alert rang through the estate. A security breach, minor according to reports. A drone had crossed into restricted space before being disabled. Kalira rushed to the command room, her guards closed behind. Elias arrived moments later, already informed. "Any damage?" he asked. "None," a security officer replied. "Probably a test unit." Elias nodded. "Did it transmit data before shutdown?" The officer hesitated. "We are checking." Elias did not say anything more, but Kalira saw his shoulders tense just slightly. After the incident, Kalira could not sleep. She found Elias once again on the balcony, staring into the artificial night. "You do not trust coincidence," she said. "No," he replied. "I respect preparation." She leaned against the railing. "Why are you really here, Elias?" He was silent for a long time. "Because humans learned something early," he said at last. "Peace is not maintained by words alone." Kalira waited. "It is maintained by those willing to stand still," he continued, "until standing still is no longer enough." She felt a quiet unease settle in her chest. In the following days, Kalira noticed subtle changes. Elias began requesting updated security schedules. He reviewed emergency evacuation routes. He spoke quietly with station commanders, offering suggestions that somehow always improved response times. No one argued with him. One morning, Kalira found him in the training room earlier than usual. He was moving through slow, controlled motions, empty hands cutting through the air as if shaping something invisible. "What is that?" she asked. "A form," he said, "very old." "A weapon style?" "A mindset," he corrected. She watched him move. Every step was precise. Every breath measured. "You do not look like a diplomat," she said softly. Elias smiled faintly. "Neither do you when you are honest." She laughed quietly, surprised by herself. Later that day, an emergency council session was called. Reports confirmed coordinated activity across multiple systems. Supply lines disrupted. Communication relays damaged. Panic spread through the chamber. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Elias waited. When the shouting reached its peak, he spoke. "If you respond loudly," he said, "you give them exactly what they want." The room slowly quieted. "They are watching how fast you move," Elias continued. "How hard you strike. If you overreach, you reveal weakness." "And if we do nothing?" someone demanded. "Then you prepare," Elias replied, quietly. Kalira watched the room change. Fear did not vanish, but it shifted. It became focused. After the meeting, Kalira walked beside Elias through the long corridor. "You are changing things," she said. He shook his head. "I am reminding them of things they already know." She stopped walking. "Elias, if war comes," he said gently, "I will do what I was sent to do." "And what is that?" He looked at her, his eyes steady and clear. "To make sure humanity is not underestimated again." Kalira felt her breath catch. That night, alone in her room, she finally admitted the truth to herself. She had married a man the galaxy did not understand. And somewhere beyond the borders of known space, forces were moving that soon would. When that moment arrived, silence would no longer be enough. The warning came without drama. No alarms screamed at first, no flashing red lights, just a quiet change in the station's rhythm like a breath held too long. Kalira noticed it during a routine briefing. The air felt tense. Her aides kept checking their displays. Security officers were moving faster than usual, their voices low and controlled. Elias stood beside her, silent as always. Then his hand moved. It was a small motion, almost nothing, but Kalira saw it. His fingers tightened once, then relaxed. "They're here," he said softly. Kalira turned to him. "Who?" "Not all of them," Elias replied. "Just enough." Before she could ask more, the lights dimmed slightly. The central display flickered, then stabilized. A calm, automated voice spoke through the chamber. "Attention! All delegates are requested to remain in place. A security situation is under assessment." The words were polite, too polite. Kalira's training told her the truth immediately. This was not a drill. Around the chamber, alien delegates shifted nervously. Some rose from their seats. Others began arguing with security officers. Fear spread quickly, feeding on uncertainty. Elias leaned closer to Kalira. "Stay near me." She looked at him sharply. "That is my line." A faint smile touched his lips, then vanished. The first disruption came from the western entrance. A group of guards collapsed, not falling hard, but slumping as if their strength had simply left them. Behind them, figures stepped forward wearing Alliance uniforms that did not quite fit right. Kalira felt her heart pound. "Infiltrators," someone shouted. Weapons appeared in alien hands. Energy fields hummed. Panic broke through restraint. Elias did not move. He watched. The infiltrators spoke loudly, their leader stepping forward. "Remain calm," the figure said. "This chamber is under new authority. No one needs to be harmed." No one believed that. Kalira felt anger flare. "They chose this place," she said under her breath. "The council chamber." "Yes," Elias replied. "Symbol and leverage." The infiltrators' leader scanned the room, then paused, its eyes fixed on Kalira. "There," it said, "the Vaith princess." Several weapons turned toward her. Before her guards could react, Elias stepped forward. He did not shout, he did not threaten. He simply placed himself between Kalira and the raised weapons. "Step back," a guard hissed. "You'll get killed." Elias did not look at him. "This does not concern you, human," the infiltrator said. "Move." Elias raised his head. "No," he said. The word was quiet, final. The infiltrator laughed. "You think yourself brave?" "No," Elias replied. "I think you miscalculated." The infiltrator's weapon charged, its energy field brightening. That was when Elias reached to his side. Until that moment, Kalira had never seen him carry anything resembling a weapon. What he drew was long and narrow, encased in a simple sheath. When it cleared the case, the air itself seemed to change. It was a blade, not an energy weapon, not a plasma edge, a sword. The metal was dark and clean, its surface catching the chamber's light in a way that felt deliberate, almost restrained. There were no decorations, no glowing symbols, just perfect balance. The room went silent. Even the infiltrators hesitated. "What is that?" someone whispered. Elias held the sword calmly, not raised, not threatening. "This," he said, "is a reminder." The infiltrator recovered first. "Kill him," it ordered. The attackers moved. What followed was not chaos, it was control. Elias stepped forward once. His movements were precise, economical. He did not rush. He did not strike wildly. Each motion ended a threat without excess force. Weapons were knocked aside. Attackers were disarmed, stunned, or forced back before they could react. Kalira watched, frozen. This was not anger. This was not desperation. This was practice. The infiltrators had expected fear. They had expected confusion. They had not expected a human who moved like this. Security forces recovered quickly once the attackers faltered. Stun fields activated. Reinforcements flooded in. Within minutes, the chamber was secure. Elias stood still as the last infiltrator was restrained. He lowered the sword. Only then did Kalira realize her hands were shaking. Medical teams rushed in. Delegates spoke all at once. Questions flew through the air like debris after a storm. Elias ignored them. He turned to Kalira. "Are you injured?" She swallowed. "No." "Good," he said, and she believed that for him it truly was. Later, in a secured chamber, the council demanded answers. "What was that weapon? Why did you carry it? Are there more humans like you?" Elias stood before them, sword once again sheathed. "Yes," he said calmly, "it is a weapon." "Yes," he continued, "I was authorized to carry it." "And yes," he finished, "there are more." The room erupted. "This is unacceptable," a delegate shouted. "You hid military assets within a diplomatic mission?" Elias met their gaze. "No, we hid experience." Kalira watched him closely. This was the most he had spoken since she met him. "You all assumed humans were harmless," Elias said. "We did not correct you." "That is deception," someone accused. "No," Elias replied, "that is survival." He gestured to the chamber. "You built a system that rewards noise." Humans learned long ago that the loudest voice is often the first target. The council fell quiet. Kalira stood then. "You owe him your lives," she said, her voice steady. "All of you." Some looked away, others nodded reluctantly. After the session ended, Kalira and Elias returned to the estate in silence. Only when the doors closed behind them did Kalira turn to him. "You could have told me," she said. "I did," Elias replied, "just not with words." She looked at the sheath at his side. "How long have you trained with that?" "All my adult life," he said, "and before that with other things." She studied his face. You were never just a diplomat. No, he agreed. I was insurance. The word echoed in her mind. That night, reports flooded in. The attack was not isolated. Similar attempts had failed across the station. The infiltrators had expected confusion and panic. They had not expected resistance that precise. Across the galaxy, messages were already spreading. Humans had blades. Humans had been quiet. And humans had chosen not to use force until forced. Kalira stood beside Elias on the balcony once more, stars stretching endlessly before them. The galaxy will fear you now, she said softly. Elias shook his head. No, they will fear misunderstanding us. She looked at him, truly looked at him. You changed everything today, she said. No, Elias replied. I revealed what was already there. Somewhere in the distance, ships moved into new positions, alliances shifted, plans were rewritten. The silent human had drawn his sword. The days after the attack felt heavier than before, as if the station itself had become aware of what almost happened. Security patrols doubled. Checkpoints appeared in corridors that had once been open and bright. Delegates spoke more carefully, watching not only each other but the humans, especially Elias. Kalira noticed how eyes followed him now, not mocking, not dismissive, measuring. He did not change his behavior. He still walked calmly, still spoke only when needed, still dressed simply. The sword was no longer hidden, but it was not displayed either. It rested at his side, sealed in its sheath, like a promise that did not need repeating. Rumors spread quickly across the station and beyond it. Different versions of the story appeared within hours. Some claimed the human had defeated dozens alone. Others said he used secret technology. A few whispered that humans had always trained like this and only pretended to be weak. Elias ignored all of it. Kalira could not. In council meetings, the tone had shifted. Where once voices had been loud and dismissive, now they were cautious. When Elias spoke, no one interrupted. When he was silent, they waited, uncomfortable with the quiet. During one session, a senior delegate finally asked the question many had been avoiding. How many more like you are there? The delegate asked. Elias answered without hesitation. Enough, the word echoed through the chamber. Enough for what? Another asked. To respond, Elias said, not to conquer. Kalira watched the faces around the table. Fear was there, yes, but also something else. Respect. After the meeting, Kalira walked with Elias through a quieter corridor. You are changing how they see humanity, she said. They are correcting an assumption, Elias replied. That is all. She shook her head. Assumptions shape policy, policy shapes war. Elias glanced at her. Then perhaps fewer wars will start from now on. She wished she shared his confidence. That evening, Kalira requested a private briefing from station intelligence. The reports were troubling. The infiltrators were part of a larger network, one that had been preparing for months. Their failure had not ended the threat, it had only revealed it. They will adapt, the intelligence officer said. They always do, Kalira nodded. And now they know humans are not what they thought. Yes, the officer agreed, which may make things worse. Later, Kalira found Elias in the training room again. This time he was not practicing forms. He was sitting on the floor, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. You are calm, she said. I am focused, he replied, opening his eyes. Do you feel guilt? She asked suddenly. For what? For revealing yourself, she said. For changing the balance. Elias considered this carefully. Balance that relies on ignorance is already broken. She sat across from him. You sound certain. I am, he said. Uncertainty is what I was trained to manage, not to live in. She studied him. Tell me about your training. He hesitated just for a moment. I was taught restraint before strength, he said. Awareness before action, silence before violence. She raised an eyebrow. Violence. It exists whether we name it or not, Elias replied. Humans learn to name it early. Kalira folded her hands. The galaxy believes humans are unpredictable, he smiled faintly. That is because they confuse emotion with impulse. Before she could respond, an alert chimed softly, not a warning, a request. A high-level delegation wanted to meet with Elias Ward, alone. Kalira felt tension rise immediately. No, she said, you will not go alone. Elias stood. I will. This could be a trap. Yes, he agreed, or an opportunity. She met his gaze. You are my husband and my responsibility. And you are a leader, he said gently, which means trusting others to carry weight. She did not like it, but she nodded. The meeting took place in a secure observation room overlooking the station's inner ring. Representatives from 3 major powers were present. All of them had once spoken dismissively of humans. They were careful now. "We want to understand," one of them began. "What humans intend." Elias listened. Another continued. "Your intervention prevented disaster, but it also revealed a capacity we did not anticipate." "Yes," Elias said. "Are humans planning to expand militarily?" the third asked. "No," Elias replied. "We are planning to remain." The delegates exchanged glances. "Remain where?" one asked. "Relevant," Elias said, "without being dominant." "That is a difficult balance," the delegate said. Elias nodded. "We practice difficult things." The conversation lasted hours. Elias gave no secrets, but he offered clarity. Humans would not seek control. They would not accept being ignored. They would act when necessary and disappear when not. When the meeting ended, the delegates left quietly. None of them laughed. Kalira was waiting outside. "They listened," she said. "They were ready," Elias replied. That night, Kalira dreamed of the council chamber again. This time, she was not afraid. She watched as lines of light shifted across the galaxy map, adjusting, stabilizing. When she woke, she realized something had changed inside her. She trusted Elias completely. The next crisis came sooner than expected. A border colony went silent. No distress call, no warning, just absence. Panic spread through the alliance. Military leaders demanded immediate retaliation. Fleets began to mobilize. Elias reviewed the data with Kalira. "They want a reaction," he said. "If we do nothing, we look weak," Kalira replied. "If we act blindly, we confirm their strategy," Elias said. She looked at him. "Then what do we do?" He pointed at the map. "We listen." Human vessels moved quietly into position, not fleets, not armadas, small, precise units. They did not announce themselves. They did not threaten. They observed. Hours later, the silence broke. The colony had been disabled, not destroyed. Power systems cut. Communications jammed. A test. Human teams restored contact without firing a shot. They left as quietly as they came. The message was clear. Humans were watching. Across the alliance, opinions shifted. Some feared humans more than ever. Others felt safer knowing someone was paying attention. Kalira stood before the council days later. "We stand at a choice," she said. "We can respond with noise or with control." Her gaze moved to Elias, standing silently beside her. "We have seen what quiet strength looks like," she continued. "I suggest we learn from it." The vote passed. New protocols were adopted, emphasis on preparation, on restraint, on cooperation with human observers. Elias said nothing. Later, alone again on the balcony, Kalira spoke softly. "You never wanted recognition." "No," Elias said. "You got it anyway." He looked at the stars. "Recognition fades, consequences remain." She stepped closer. "And when the next threat comes." Elias rested a hand lightly on the railing. "Then we will already be ready." Kalira watched the endless stars and understood. The galaxy had believed humans were weak because they were quiet. Now it was learning the truth. Silence was not absence. It was discipline. The galaxy did not change all at once. Change never did. It came in small shifts, in quieter meetings, in words spoken more carefully than before, in pauses where once there had been shouting. And in those pauses, humanity began to exist not as a rumor or a joke, but as a presence. Kalira felt it everywhere. When she entered council chambers, delegates no longer spoke over her. When Elias stood beside her, they did not look away or laugh. They watched him with a kind of thoughtful respect, as if trying to understand something that had always been there but never seen. The alliance had survived the crisis. That alone was rare. More rare still was what followed: preparation. Human advisors were quietly requested, not demanded. Human observers were placed along borders that had once been ignored. Response times improved. Conflicts cooled before they could burn. And through it all, Elias remained exactly the same. He did not accept praise. He did not seek command. He did not try to shape policy beyond gentle suggestion. When asked why, he gave the same answer every time. Because power that wants to be seen will always be tested. Kalira carried those words with her. Months passed. The infiltrator network collapsed under its own weight, its plans undone by patience rather than force. Leaders who had once pushed for loud displays of strength now spoke of stability and control. Some resented the change. A few feared it, but most accepted it. One evening, Kalira stood alone in the council chamber after a long session. The lights were low, the room quiet. She remembered standing here months ago, afraid, surrounded by uncertainty. She was not afraid now. Elias entered silently, as he always did. They approved the new charter, she said. Yes, he replied. It was time. She turned to face him. You never tried to take credit. No, he said. Credit changes behavior, she smiled faintly. You sound like you planned all of this. I planned for failure, Elias replied. Success is harder to predict. They walked together through the empty hallways of the station. Outside the windows, ships moved in ordered paths, lights blinking steadily. Peace did not look exciting, but it looked real. Later that night, Kalira asked a question she had held back for a long time. When this is over, she said, what will you do? Elias paused. This is never over, she nodded. Then what will we do? He looked at her then, truly looked at her, not as a diplomat or a symbol, but as a partner. We will remain, he said, together. The word carried more weight than any vow spoken in the ceremony hall. The next test came quietly. A message arrived from beyond alliance space. Not a threat, not a demand, a question. How should we approach humans? The council debated how to respond. Some wanted to display strength. Others wanted to negotiate from fear. Kalira spoke last. You approach them honestly, she said, and without shouting. The message was sent. The reply came hours later. Accepted. No conditions, no demands, just acceptance. Elias read the reply and nodded. That is a good start. Weeks later, a small delegation arrived. Not soldiers, not warships, observers. They watched human advisors work. They watched Elias move through corridors, speak softly, listen deeply. They began to understand. One of them asked Kalira privately, is he always like this? Yes, she said. That is the point. The final council session of the year was held under open stars. A symbolic gesture meant to show unity and trust. Kalira stood at the center, representing the Vaith and the Alliance. Elias stood beside her, as he always had. As the session ended, a delegate asked a question that would be remembered long after. Why did humans wait so long to show us who they really are? The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. Elias answered. Because, he said, those who rush to prove themselves rarely survive long. The stars burned quietly overhead. After the session, Kalira and Elias returned to the balcony of their residence. It had become their place, a space between worlds. You changed history, Kalira said. Elias shook his head. History changes itself. We just chose how to stand when it did. She leaned against him, unafraid now. Do you ever regret staying silent for so long? She asked. No, Elias said. Silence taught us who was listening. She closed her eyes, feeling the steady presence beside her. Somewhere in the galaxy, new species were watching humans carefully, not with fear alone, with curiosity, with caution, and with respect. The story of the silent human spread, but it changed as it traveled. Some told it as a warning, others as a lesson. The truth was simpler. Humanity had never been weak. It had been waiting, waiting for a reason, waiting for the moment when words would no longer be enough. That moment had come and passed. Now the galaxy moved forward under a new understanding. Strength did not always shout. Sometimes it stood quietly beside you, sword sheathed, eyes open, ready, but hoping never to be needed again.